welcome everyone. I'm Jack Morgan, Vice President of Advisor Technology and Platform Solutions here at Rise Growth Partners. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're fortunate to work alongside some of the most forward-thinking advisory firms in the country, like Bleakley Financial Group, Grimes and Company, and what we're hearing is loud and clear. Client uncertainty is high, headlines are louder, and advisors are being called to lead at a higher level. So for today's Rise Up webinar, we've tapped the expertise of 3 Rise leaders who have helped advisors thrive through every kind of market cycle. And they're here to share what's working now and what to do to rise up over the next few months since there's so much in flux. With that, I want to introduce Joe Duran and give him a moment to talk about why we're doing the webinar today. Joe's a managing partner at Rise Growth Partners. He founded United Capital, served as a partner at Goldman Sachs, and is a sought-after industry speaker and author. He's guided thousands of advisors through moments where communication and leadership made all the difference. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, thanks, Jack. You have a bull, I have an elephant behind me, so I guess we like things with horns. Anyway, I'm really thrilled, Jack, to have this session. I've with us, obviously, Terry Carlson, who has a very prestigious history, including running all of Schwab's retail businesses and, of course, being a senior partner and COO of Wealth Enhancement Group, and Jennifer, who was the Chief Marketing Officer at both Focus and Colony Group. So we've certainly shared and been through our own set of many market turbulences. Great to see you, Terry, Jennifer. We're going to have a really fun session. We're doing this for one reason and one reason only, and that's that we know that there's opportunities when things are chaotic. I like the quote from Winston Churchill. I actually looked this up on ChatGPT. Never waste a good crisis. Never let a good crisis go to waste if you can lead to a positive change. And we've been through a very turbulent market here. And what we're going to do here, I think, Jennifer, is really lay out, not just, we certainly aren't going to tell you how to communicate to clients. What we're going to do is lay out a playbook of how to use opportunities like this to actually lean into building your goodwill with clients and actually growing. Because I always think there's plenty of people telling you how you should think about the markets. There aren't a lot of people telling you in a business sense, how do you maximize that? How would a good, smart institution, a Goldman Sachs, a United Capital, a Schwab, how would large institutions approach something like this in a repeatable, scalable way so that you know how to win? And I'm super thrilled, Jennifer, that we're here to do this. And Jack, I can't wait to do.
As am I. I love talking about client communications. And the nice thing is you're referencing some large firms, but in this case, size doesn't matter. Smaller firms can be very effective as well. So Jack, why don't you?
Can I just share 2 stats to kind of set the stage here? Because I think this is so important. And Vanguard did a study. I bet a lot of our viewers have heard it. It's the Vanguard study on the advisors in 2022. And basically they said emotional coaching was the single most valuable service an advisor can offer, much more than just portfolio construction. So this concept of emotional coaching is so important. And also Cerulli just actually came out with a report. 60% of clients will leave their advisors because of a perceived lack of personal attention or poor relationship quality. So if you're wondering why we're doing this, this is really about creating that connection during volatile times so that we don't have any clients that feel that there's not a connection here.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Terry. Well said. I think with that, let's just start by jumping straight into the client mindset. When we think about like what are investors feeling right now, and Terry, to go back to you, the CBOE Volatility Index spiked at 52.33 on April 8th. It's been the highest since it's been through COVID-19, and it remains elevated. How do you think that's translating into client conversations today?
Well, certainly there's a lot of people who are bearish right now. There's a heavy fear about a potential recession. Actually, there's been a couple studies done by Schwab. 33% of traders today are feeling that it's somewhat likely or more than likely in terms of having a recession. So even just 3 months ago, traders were not feeling that way. And so consumer sentiment, as you know, is down. We've just had our first quarter since 2022 of negative GDP. There's a lot of concern out there. And one of the stats I wanted to share is that Google's one of their most important stat where people are searching right now is for a financial advisor because they're uncertain of how to make it through these times.
And Terry, I'll add one thing. What is unique about this particular circumstance is it's not just the market, it's actually their personal lives that are being affected. They're thinking about, what does it mean in tariffs? What does it mean for my expenses? What is AI doing to my jobs? There's so many big issues looming that affect their pocketbooks. So this isn't just an investment thing. People are insecure about their small business owners. They certainly are facing a crisis when it comes to the impact of these tariffs. Again, not to make a political statement, but to understand that the uncertainty is multi-pronged right now, which makes it quite unique.
I love it when a CFA tells me, the CFP, hey, listen, it's not just about investing, Terry. It's about their life events. You got it, Joe. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, and Joe, maybe you want to expand a little bit on that. I mean, obviously you have a ton of experience in the industry and whatnot. Like, what are you seeing from whether it be friends, family, et cetera, on the sentiment?
I'll tell you what I'll share. There's a great, one of the smartest people in the entire financial industry is a guy called Howard Marks. And he has a great quote. The market and individual investors are always on the seesaw between FOMO, fear of missing out, and FOMO, fear of losing money. So that seesaw is usually relatively stable. When you have high volatility, think about it like the seesaw is more extreme. And because you have these, we've had very abrupt declines, 20%. I think we hit at 19 or 20.1% on the S&P 500. You get this sharp decline and everyone's like, oh my God, I got to get out. And usually once you're down 20%, it looks like the world is going to end. And so the fear of losing money gets springboarded really low. And then you have these massive 3, 4, 5%. We had a 6% one-day advance, which is basically half a year's gains in one day. And everyone goes, oh my God, I got to now, fear of missing out takes charge. And so what happens is clients are always in this battle. And what I'd share as the first tip, that we're going to give you many tips, including a playbook, but most importantly, the first tip is ask yourself whether the client is calling you with one of those as their primary concern. Because if they're calling you in the midst of a decline and they're seeing big advances and they're talking about fear of missing out, and that's the overriding conversation, first of all, we're probably not at a bottom if that's happening. And second of all, you can't be talking about the continued decline. You need to be talking about how they need to be prudent about not rushing in. And so again, I think knowing which side of the seesaw the client is on right now and realizing that when it's very extreme, even if they're not calling you, they're having those feelings on an ongoing basis because the market volatility makes it to the main news. And as soon as that happens, whether you're in the conversation or not, they're having the conversation. They're thinking about it. And you can't pretend just because they're not calling you. It's the old gauge theory we always used to have in Jennifer. When the clients are calling, that's when we'll do something. Except now, because of social media, the way people interact, they're probably having the conversation behind, not in front of you. They're not calling you.
That's
Maybe
right.
because they know everything you're going to say is always the same thing. Don't worry about it. Hold on.
Right.
And they're sick of hearing it, right?
So great advisors coach their clients on your plan was built to weather these storms. So sometimes they could be embarrassed to call. Like they could say, oh, I know my advisor is going to say the same thing, but it doesn't mean they're not worried and anxious.
Right.
Yeah. But I think earlier in the conversation, I think Joe or Jen, one of you brought up like this concept of the playbook, right? When we think about communications and that firm level communication, we know that sets the tone. So let's talk a little bit about how these strong organizations are really guiding their teams and clients right now. And Joe, I'll go to you with this. How are we seeing great RI leaders show up today within the advisor and with their client relationships?
Well, first of all, have a plan. And Jennifer will get into specifically this, but you've got to know when do you act. when is it likely? And you need different triggers. And I don't know if we want to talk now about the kinds of triggers that you can use. Jennifer?
Sure, I can dive in on that, Joe. Yeah, I'll say firms that do this well, they already have a strong culture of ongoing communication that's coming from the firm. It doesn't need to be every day, but they have a cadence of, once a week, once a month, something written or increasingly video going to clients. So clients know even when they're not worried about their financial lives, their advisor and the firm behind them is on top of it.
And Jennifer, I want to highlight one thing on video.
Mhm.
There was research done a few years ago. If a client sees a video of you, 3 weeks later, they don't remember if they saw you in person or watched a video, which is quite remarkable, but nonetheless true. So I just underscore, if you sent a one-to-many video just saying, hey, this is what's happening, great to see you, let me give you an update, the effectiveness of them feeling like they connected with you, seeing your face, is wildly different than if they're not. Some people prefer to read, but it's still nonetheless
But
the
there's
impression
so
you make.
much video. I'm a huge fan. I keep nudging firms to do more video. Think about how we consume news. It's a lot of video snippets. So,
And Zoom has made that more true than ever, right?
yes.
I wonder if our viewers today will remember that they saw us on video, or maybe we're all in their living room.
Exactly. We're in your neighborhood.
We're with them.
In your office right next to them right now.
Yeah, and in terms of that, I think of it, Joe, as a temperature gauge. So when things start to get a little rocky, I think of that as low level temperature. So you might want to include, if you have a newsletter, if you have an ongoing communication, acknowledge what is going on and share some thoughts about it. So again, clients know you're attuned to what's happening. As the temperature goes up, the next level might be a little bit more proactivity. Maybe you send an email or a video, or you have advisors do some proactive outreach, talking specifically, very specifically about what's going on in the world. Again, just letting them know you're on top of it, you're thinking about it, but we're not panicked, we're calm, everything's going to be okay. And then the highest level, which Jack, you pinned the date, I think it was April 8th. That's when you want to make sure you're calling likely every client, even if they're not calling you, even if they never call you, it's still worth a phone call. Maybe do a webinar like we're doing today, a live webinar, so that they see and hear voices. And they see and hear more than just the advisor. They trust their advisor. They have great confidence in their advisor. Yet there's a lot of comfort in knowing there's a whole team, a whole firm surrounding the advisor.
It's like basically DEFCON 1, DEFCON 2, DEFCON 3, right?
That's another way to
It's really good. And having a strategy for us, just so you know, I never believed in the call-in because I knew people were busy, but I do believe in the VIX indicator. So I just think if VIX is up to 25, it's like people are thinking about it. It usually means we've had a 5% decline or so. We get to VIX of 35 or so, we're probably at level 2. And if we get over 45, we've probably had a couple of really big down days. And we're at a level now where we've got to step in. And if you overlay that with a percentage decline, once you're over 10 to 15% and you get high volatility, that would be we got to speak to people. We got to create a Zoom. We got to send that Zoom to people. And they want to do 3 things when you're communicating out with them. Number 1, you're fully aware of what's happening. Number 2, they don't need to lose sleep because you're losing sleep and working on their behalf. And number 3, that if there is a concern, you are there to make things happen. I think the biggest mistake that most advisors make in outbound communication is basically, don't worry about it, it's going to be okay. But the truth is the advisor doesn't know if it's going to be okay. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Markets recovered very nicely. It could go down 5,000 points for whatever reason. And clients want to know that you're not just going to say, just do nothing. They want to know that if you must do something, here's a couple things we could do that do not derail your plan. And so one of the biggest suggestions I have is let them know that if they're losing sleep and they need to do something, here's some low-level changes we can make. We can rebalance your account. We can take a small piece and give you your next year or two of sleep comfortably money in money market. Like, there's framing you can do. But one of the most frequent things we heard when we did surveys of clients post-market declines is that even at United Capital, even at Goldman, if we didn't look like we were proactively listening to their pain and giving them something that didn't derail their plan, because some people just want to know you do something. And it's very frustrating if they're telling you that they're in pain and you said, it's not pain, it's temporary.
Right.
Those
so
are
it doesn't count.
Yeah, Joe, you know, when we were working with advisors, those are very dismissive responses, right? Like, don't worry, it'll bounce back. Or don't worry, you know, we've seen this before, we'll just get through it. Sit tight. I mean, those just don't work. They're very patronizing for clients, and we've got to really respond with something that will validate their feelings and empower all of us to take action.
Yeah.
And one other thing related to that I've seen work really well is to throw out those nuggets, Joe, of here are some things we might do. Let me look into this a little bit, do a little more analysis. Let's talk tomorrow or the next day. Often tomorrow and the next day, just from that one conversation, they feel so much better already. They might not ultimately want to make any change, but you've acknowledged that there are things that you can do together.
And look, the automatic thing, of course, is if you say, look, schedule an appointment, and when they come in, we've rerun your financial plan with today's assets. Here it is. There's no calming influence more than that to say, we didn't do it just based on a quarter ago at the end of the year. Markets have fallen this much. We've rerun the plan. Here's what it means. And by the way, yes, things are bad, but it would be better if you just spent $500 a month less for the next couple of months, and then we don't need to make any changes to your portfolio if it bounces back. And by the way, if we do that one little change, you can withstand another 10% drop without any fundamental change to your plan. Like, again, moving to things that they can control, that they're like, well, that's 1 meal out or 2 meals out a month. I can live with that. And then I don't have to miss out if the market recovers. So again, leaning onto your expertise and actually rerunning their plan and saying, I've taken the liberty of suggesting some modest changes you can make. Again, presuming the market fell enough that it's adjusted. Again, after the financial crisis, you needed to change your plan. That's our job, right?
Yeah, right. And I think we've done a really good job here highlighting like how we show up consistently and proactively and effectively for clients. And I think, Terry, obviously you have a perspective like with your work with the CFP board. Well, like we're talking about kind of the ideal state, right? The clients listen, they feel comfortable, they're at ease, but what happens when they're not? What happens when they remain nervous? We've gone through the solid messaging. Like, what are you seeing that works and doesn't work when that happens?
Well, first of all, every advisor needs a consistent, repeatable plan with clients, not only just during volatile systems, but every day. Like, we've got to have a plan for clients and working with them. And that really means setting expectations for clients in the very beginning and then reinforcing those expectations of their risk tolerance. This is a time when clients truly need to understand their risk tolerance, which is something as CFPs and CFAs we talk about with clients all the time. So that's critical. And then when you're preparing, even for those clients who remain nervous about this, we should be revisiting their financial plan, making sure that we understand their goals. If their goals have changed in the last 6 months and we don't know that, that's a problem. So having a regular contact with clients is important. And then as you're preparing, anticipate what nervous people will do, right? What we used to do in my prior firm is we would look for clients during earlier volatile times and then study what their behaviors were. And we would target those clients that we knew were already going to be nervous. And then we would prepare a plan to have regular communication with them and make changes as they felt were needed. You have to have a checklist for every meeting, and we'll go over that, but you'll get a copy of that as a result of this meeting. But also keeping it simple for them, because the more jargon you use, the more complexity of language, the more overwhelmed they'll be, and you'll contribute to this ongoing anxiety. So use visuals as much as possible. We talked about videos, but make sure that you're keeping this very simple and always tie it back to their confidence level in their overall plan. The other thing I recommend as an advisor is that they should bring someone into the meeting or the phone call that they trust. So they always have someone near them hearing the data, hearing the understanding, and really being able to console them during this time while I, as an advisor, continue to do that. But it helps to have a buddy system in any situation. If I exercise, I do better with a buddy. If I'm working with an advisor, I do better with a buddy. But I know these are people's financial lives, so it has to be someone they truly trust.
And now, Jack, I know we've got, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. We have an actual playbook that you're going to receive if you've attended this meeting, and you can obviously sign up for. But there are 3 levels of communication. The first one is, and by the way, as we mentioned, it depends whether you're DEFCON 1, 2, or 3. But the first one is one-on-one communication. And first, it just needs to be updates. Here's what's happening. I'm sure you're aware. Please know we're here. Let people feel good. Number 2, having a checklist for your advisors. It depends obviously on the size of your firm, but you have more than 2 or 3 advisors. You should be able to pull down a checklist, which is not an agenda, but has a list of the things you want to cover on the call. So either it's inbound or you're doing outbound, here are the things we want to make sure we cover. We are aware, here's what's happening, give them an update of what's happening. Number 2, give an update on how we are reacting to it. Give an update of what it's meant to their portfolios. Give an update as to what actions you are taking next. Make sure you ask, do you feel satisfied, or do you need to do something else? Because we can, if it goes further, rerun a financial plan, or we've already done that. And by the way, if you want to take some tactical actions that don't fundamentally change your plan, here are some suggestions. So having that done from a central place, presuming you have most of the people on this call are more than $1 billion in size, having that in place, having every person on the team know what their role is and what they're setting up, even doing a dry run where you coach your advisors, this is what a call should feel like. And walk through live with your advisors an interaction. Have one of your advisors pretend to be the client and be challenging and freaking out so that you show people from leadership, this is what we want this to feel like. And the most important part of the checklist, what's the measurement of success? What does success look like at the end of this meeting? And it should be that your clients feel confident, they feel in control, and that they have comfort that everything's good. That's the goal. And so what are the things that you as your firm that are right for you and your culture and who you are that will accomplish that goal? And having checklists assures that everyone's singing from the same song. And then how far down the stream do you want to do it? And then when you do a group call, same thing. Have a checklist. Make sure you cover those 5 or 6 key items that everybody will be thinking about. And then make it interesting enough that they want to share it with their friends. Because Jennifer, we grew the most after crisis. Goldman is world-class at this, by the way, world-class, because they'll bring in Charmine, who's brilliant. She will talk, has talking points, gives the advisors talking points they can then share after they've watched the video, and how to communicate with what we're all doing, with all the elements I discussed. So Jennifer, I know we talk about this a lot, but it is an opportunity to grow if you create content, whether written or video, that can be shared with their friends and family, because they will be having dinner and they will be having a cocktail with their nephew or their cousin or their best friend, saying, you should just watch the thing my advisor sent me because it was really smart about what's happening.
And this is when those conversations are happening. Like, we know that a lot of times clients don't make a move because things are okay with their advisor. Their advisor is a really nice person. They've been with them a long time and it's pleasant, and they might have a little bit of dissatisfaction, but not enough to make a move. But during volatile times, especially if advisors are not proactively reaching out, that's when people clients lift up their heads and say, is there a better place for me? Or they're having those conversations with their colleagues, family members, friends, and they start hearing about the proactivity of other advisors, and they will consider making a move. And if you're delivering to your clients the written, the video, all these different communications, it makes it really easy for your client who really values you to just take that step and say, oh, let me forward you this email. Let me make the direct introduction. I really think you should talk, at least talk to my advisor. They'll share some ideas, even if you don't want to make a move at this time.
Jennifer, I was just in Boston at a Charles Bank conference. As you know, they're our private equity backers. And that General McChrystal, who ran all the special ops teams in Afghanistan, and he made a comment that I thought was very valid. And he said, when the bullets are flying and you have a bunch of 19-year-old young men who've never been shot at ever, and they start getting live bullets going at them, the first thing they do is look at their leaders. And so I think the important thing to happen here is that what you project as the leader, it sets the tone for the entire team. And so I think making clear that, and I'm a big believer in using the word love, we're here to bring our love and care to our clients and help them in a time that we know will be fine, but they don't know it'll be fine. It's giving them a sense of perspective. I have 3 daughters. And my job sometimes was just to listen and create a loving place. As a guy, I took a while to get the lesson, but a wife of 32 years and 3 daughters
I'm going to
pounded into me.
I'm going to get some feedback from your daughters, Joe.
They sound pretty good sometimes, but I will say, understanding that you set the tone, and don't say our clients don't know. Say, look, they're confused and they're scared. And many of them are afraid to tell us that because we're acting like it's stupid to be silly and afraid. And yet some of them are going to feel that way. And you need to create a safe, loving place where people can share that. That alone will bring loyalty and support from your clients. And sharing that with your team, we're here to create a safe, loving place for our clients because that's what they value more than anything. As Terry said, we are here to help them make the right emotional choices. And so I think it's really helpful if you set that tone, because then that's going to come across in the messaging too. And I think too many investment-centric people talk about, well, we're going to make money and we're going to do this and it's going to bounce back. It always bounces back because it always feels different this time. Even though we know it's probably going to be fine, it doesn't feel that way for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and let's talk about the other side of this coin, right? We're talking about like retaining clients today, taking care of them, making them feel heard and protected and safe and loved. But I mean, Jen, on the flip side of that, right, we think about like, how do we open new doors right now? Like, how do you become the advisor in the conversation that you're being referred to in times like this? And so can you talk a little bit about like how that strong, authentic brand presence can really help drive business also when we're in environments like the ones that we're in now?
Yeah. Well, I do think part of it is having those ongoing communications, just make it easy to share things, but also pick up on cues from your clients as to when it's appropriate to open that door to talk to other people in their circles. So you're not going to use this time to just walk into every client discussion when they're feeling like they need to feel heard and asking for referrals. That would be completely awkward and inappropriate. However, you will likely hear clients referring to things they're worried about, or sometimes they won't attribute it to themselves. They'll say, well, my brother-in-law is nervous about this. My colleagues are worried about this. Friends of mine who are also close to retiring are worried about this. And as you respond, I think it is appropriate to make that offer to say, listen, I heard you mention this a couple of times. I just want you to know you're so valued to me that I'm happy to talk to anyone in your circle at any time. I will not charge them anything. I will not do a hard push for them to become a client. I want to help people you care about
And
as
Jennifer,
well.
you've just said the magic words. If you're here to serve and help, people want that. Like if you have a client who's a small business owner who's worried about tariffs and wants to think about what it means to their portfolio, if you are in that conversation, say, look, I know you've got friends and family that are suffering and concerned, and I just want you to know I'm here to serve you. So if you ever need me to get on a phone and help them with anything that they need to figure out, I'm happy to do that for you. Just know that. Like, and again, not to get clients, but because you're here to support and serve your clients. And if it's done in that way, they will appreciate it. We have skills and knowledge that people need access to. I always say, like, the advisors who think of themselves like salespeople are never going to be as exceptional as the advisors who think of themselves as serious professionals who have knowledge that is useful and valuable, like a lawyer or a doctor. And you shouldn't give it away asking for referrals. That's embarrassing and demeans our profession. But if you offer your help to your most valuable clients because you mean it, you want them and their friends and family to win and succeed, that is obvious and clean and good. So there's a way of doing it which I love and a way which I would never, ever do.
And we haven't spoken about other professionals you might interact with as well. Many advisors have a small circle of centers of influence. You know, we talk about COIs, but they're just another form of a trusted relationship. And I do think it's appropriate there as well to share stories with those individuals who you interact with regularly and say, this is what is on the minds of our clients. I just want you to know if you have clients who you've noticed like they're increasingly worried and experiencing some anxiety, I'm happy to talk to them.
Yeah, and you know, Terry, you do this better than anyone I've ever met. And you do this all the time on our Wealthy On station, which is you use case studies and real examples of things that you've gone through. And you're very good at prompting that from the advisors that we interview. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Well, one of the things that we talk about in our Wealthy On show that's on YouTube is, how do we really help clients during this volatile time? And so a case study that we've shared recently is really understanding our clients' emotional tolerance. So we're working with clients. How do they respond? Are they conservative or aggressive during these times? So let's just say we have, Jill Smith. She tends to be very emotional at these times. Then we really create an actual playbook to help them. That means sending them a personalized note right away, very quickly, proactively, so that Jill Smith feels very calm during this time, answering any questions, and then following up with videos from experts from our organization, like Bleakley or Grimes, for example, really showing exactly the experts talking to them about this, and then maintaining that communication. Jill and I would actually agree to meet during this time, maybe every Wednesday for 15 minutes, just to go over, make sure she's doing okay, or inviting Jill's family in. So those are all examples of a playbook of how you can create that really connection around emotional coaching that is a real life example, but that can actually apply to many of your clients that are feeling that fear at this time. Not all your clients are going to feel it this way. And so really knowing and segmenting your client base is important.
And when you're doing these calls, it's very useful to say, hey, I had a call with one of our clients last week. He didn't care at all. But
Right.
Nonetheless, his portfolio had actually gone down enough that we needed to talk about making some changes to his plan or whatever example. People relate really well with examples because they can then, without embarrassing themselves, say, oh, I can relate with that. So
Yeah.
I like using the examples that you can use to give an indirect piece of advice to someone who might not want to have it directly. And even historical. Let me share with you with somebody, like when somebody says, I got to go to cash, or these tariffs are not going away, to say, I want to share something that happened to me 10 years ago when COVID hit, or 6 years ago, and what happened with Betty, who you don't know, and what transpired because she didn't listen to my advice, or she did listen to my advice and has a happy ending. Those kinds of examples, I would just have in your back pocket for each persona, as Terry's described, different kinds of people, so you can give validation. You all have enough clients that you've experienced pretty much everything in the world, and being able to use real examples that are parallels but not direct is great for people to like imagine themselves in that circumstance, say, oh, it's kind of the same but different. And they made the right choice or the wrong choice. And this is what it meant to them. So
this is the time, Joe, when a friend of mine, remember when you always
exactly,
think a friend of mine is going through this. This is a good one to have a friend of mine story ready to go.
That's right. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I think we touched on this a little bit through the conversation, just talking about things that advisors could be doing and things like that. But I think more pointed, I mean, Joe, what are your thoughts on like what really differentiates the advisors that can grow and create hyper growth within moments like this when we have the volatility?
Well, first of all, it has to be relatable. It has to be relevant and relatable. So whatever you're sharing has to mean something to the people that are talking. It has to be, secondly, relevant to their circumstance and something they would want to share. And that's the third. Something that is interesting, a perspective that they haven't heard anywhere else, and something they want to share. So it means the content needs to be interesting enough, but also be packaged in a way that it doesn't have any personal information. So again, if you send a personal note, having something that says, by the way, we created this brief 5-minute primer of what's transpired and what you should do about it, that you're welcome to share with your friends. Like that is proactive, it's useful, and they might give it to people who have you'll never speak to, but guess what they're telling their friends? And all their friends are thinking, my advisor didn't do that. Just remember, most advisors right now are sitting hiding under their chair, begging for the market to go up so their problems disappear. That is what 90% of advisors are doing in this circumstance. And the ones who are getting up and doing something, they're only calling their top 30 clients proactively, and they're waiting for people to call
or
in.
taking the inbounds. Yeah.
And 99% of advisors are not reaching out to the bottom half of their clients. And it is the easiest, most impactful way for those clients you don't speak to a lot to make a massive dent where they feel loved and cared for. If you want to fight, I view down markets, it's an opportunity to grow, but most importantly, it's an opportunity to retain. Because first of all, if you're not doing that job and I reach out or one of my clients sends a note to your client who hasn't heard from you or got a canned letter, and they get my note that's so personal and their friend sends it to them, they'll go, man, I should be working with Terry or Jennifer or Joe, because they seem like they really do care. And look at how thoughtful this is. To be a shining example of how you yourself would like to be communicated with and not be just some other number in the shoehole, in the box. And big firms, $100 billion firms, they do not do true personalization. It's all done at scale. And you have the advantage of really putting a personal imprimatur on things. And if you make it personal and make it relevant and make it shareable, that's how you win in retention and in taking clients from other advisors.
Yeah, and I think you did a great job and highlighting, Joe, at the end of the day, that adage that, you know, if you don't take care of your clients, someone else is gonna, right? And so I think getting in there and making sure you're doing that is key. So I would not be a good moderator if I did not keep us on pace here. So we're going to keep on moving along. I think before we jump to Q&A, and again, reminder to everyone, please put any questions that you have that we're going to answer live here. But while we're waiting for that, Joe, Terry, and Jennifer, I want to kind of do a rapid fire round and have each of you take a minute to kind of give your one rise up action as we start to close out this webinar. And Joe, I'm going to start with you.
Well, first, download the playbook. Jennifer is a world-class pro. Terry is the most brilliant person I've ever met. And we put our best thinking together of giving you a free playbook because we want you to win. So just take that playbook and use whatever version of it and share it with whoever you want to so that you can win.
Terry, it's Feel Good Friday for us.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready to drop the mic at this point. My weekend started. So
Awesome.
I can give you a little add on to what Joe said. I've always lived by this quote, and it wasn't my quote, it's someone else's that I don't even know how to give credit to, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And for me, for any advisor watching right now, we all know a lot. We're very, we have a lot of credentials, we've got licenses, we've got degrees, but people care about that, but only after they know how much you care about them. And so thinking about during this time, none of us can control this environment, but if clients know we care about them, and here's 3 things I generally tell clients. Here's what we know today. Here's what we know we can control today. And here's our plan for moving forward. Those 3 things address their concerns, but get us to move forward to achieve their goals.
Fantastic. Well said, Terry. Thank you. Jen, anything you would like to add?
My quick tip would be to get your communications house in order. Get comfortable with your ongoing communications plan if you don't already have one. And if you do, the next step would be appoint a person or a couple of people to take the lead when there is volatility. What individual, or usually often it's a few. It might be someone from leadership, it might be a marketing team member, and maybe a couple of advisors who are going to gather, assess where are we on that temperature scale, and make a recommendation on how to move forward. Because often when things get rocky, you have firms with a lot of people spinning around trying to figure out what should we do, different people drafting different things, when they should really put that energy into these outbound personal communications. So get your house in order and appoint your team who's going to take the lead.
All right. Fantastic. Great tips. We are coming close on time here, so we're going to take just a couple of questions. First one that came in is, how can advisors create a safe space for clients to express their real concerns without letting the conversation get out of control? Who wants to take that one?
Terry.
Sure.
You're a velvet
That's
hammer.
a Terry
You're a safe
one.
cushion. Yeah.
Well, here's how I think about that question. Thank you for sending it in. You think about if you need a safe space, what that, facilitates is trust. How much trust do you have with this client, and how does he or she trust you? And trust is built up over time, consistent actions day after day. And so one of the things I really recommend is that if you've made any type of commitment to clients, follow through in less than 24 hours. Like, let them feel like you are their top, or they are your top priority. They have to feel prioritized even during this time. And then really create an irregular cadence of contact, proactive contact with them. So they're not just hearing from you when there's volatility, but they're hearing from you throughout the year based on their total life events, not just their investment portfolio. Those are some of the things I would recommend to create that space for clients.
All right.
Honestly, more than anything, know what they're worried about. Just make it your goal when they come in.
Yeah.
Where do they have ache? Where is their broken bond? Because if they're calling you, they have pain. And if you just say, my only job is to figure out where they are suffering and see how I might help to heal that a little, that creates a safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you
We have
both.
time for one more question, Jack.
One more question, and this one I think is definitely geared for Jen here. We've talked a lot about communication playbooks and checklists. For firms that do not yet have a playbook, what is the best first step?
Oh, the best first step. The best first step, I would say, is to not focus on volatile times and how you're going to communicate, but focus on establishing a regular communications plan for your firm. Which segments are you targeting? How might the messages be different? What might the cadence and frequency be? What are the channels? Is it written, video? And put a plan in place. It does not need to be terribly elaborate for the start. You can always add. It's
And
always
Jen,
gonna
in
be
this
that.
day and age, you can literally go to ChatGPT right now and just say, hey, I have a wealth management firm.
Yep.
I want to communicate in a light way with my clients. There's 400 of them. This is who they are. This is where they live.
Right.
What should I do? And it will give you a step-by-step plan, by the way.
And
So,
and the most important thing is who's accountable for which pieces and when are they going to deliver, who's going to send it out. Literally put all the nuts and bolts around it so you can execute and you can add over time. But get your ongoing communications in order, and then you can add on what do we do during these volatile times, and keep refining, adding, and enhancing your communications.
and Jack, I just want to say as we wrap here, our goal here is to inform and elevate the entire profession. And hopefully people have found this useful. This will be a recurring thing. We'll do several of these on different topics. Hopefully they're useful to you. If we can ever be of service, we're here to help the industry evolve and get better and help independent advisors win. So thank you very much for your time. And hopefully this has been helpful.